Good morning. Let me ask you today, what is in your heart? What is in your heart, that innermost part of you? What is in your mind, your will, your emotions? What is functioning inside of you? What are you filled with? Jesus talked a lot about the heart. He talked about a wicked heart. He talked about a good heart. He talked about the things that are in our hearts. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth good things. An evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart brings forth evil things. Um, Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. We're told over in Proverbs 4:23, it says, guard or keep or guard your heart with all diligence, all of your strength and energy and effort. Guard your heart with all diligence, because out of your heart comes the very forces of life. What is your heart filled with? One of the things that Jesus spoke to the churches about in the book of Revelation, chapter 2, the very first of the seven churches Jesus addressed was the church at Ephesus. It's interesting that every church Jesus addressed, he began with the same words. He said, I know your works. I know what you're doing. And most of the churches, he was very complimentary about their faithfulness and their labor and the things they were so fervent about. And yet, the thing that was the problem with those churches primarily was their works. It was their works instead of his work. It was what they were doing instead of what he wanted them to rest in. You see, it's easy for the church, that is believers, to get caught up in what they do and estimate who they are by how successful or fruitful they are. And their life, even in service to God, becomes works. And the works of man will never accomplish the will of God. It is the work of God that we step into and operate in by faith. It's his finished work. But the problem with Ephesus was that the city of Ephesus was a port city, and it was great. The ships would come in with all kinds of supplies. But there was a warning. Jesus said, if you don't return to your first love, that love of faith instead of works, if you don't return to your first love, he said, your candlestick, your city, your position will be moved out of its place. And the people at Ephesus knew exactly what that meant. There was a river, Cayster, that emptied into the port, and it filled the port with all kinds of silt. And if they didn't keep the port dredged, the ships couldn't bring the supply into the port. And it wasn't many years after this, they quit dredging the port. And today, the ancient city of Ephesus is 6 miles from the shoreline. That silt over several thousand years has filled in the whole surrounding area and displaced the port city. What does that tell us? It tells us this. Our heart is a place for God's presence, and he wants to bring things into our heart. He wants to bring us supply, provision, the things of grace that we desperately need. But if our heart is filled with silt, if it's filled up with the things of our own doing, then God can't bring the ship of supply into your port. Things displace the will of God, the love of God, the things of God, and our heart becomes filled with other things. And whatever our heart is full of is what our mouth talks about, and whatever we speak in abundance is what we bring back into our own lives. God's plan always works. He says, guard your heart. What's in your heart? Make sure it's not bitterness or unforgiveness or judgments, criticisms or condemnation of others. Make sure your heart is open and able to receive what God has for you. Lord, thank you today for that marvelous truth of your word that, Lord, our hearts need to be guarded, kept, and preserved. Lord, that we don't allow things in that'll get in our way, but Lord, that our hearts would be open and able to receive all the things that you've prepared for us this day. We thank you for it now in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. God bless you. Have a great day.